The bomb in your internet history that after you die will scandalize your survivors. This is the Daniel Natal Show. This presentation begins with a question. What is wealth? In the foundational book on economics in the English-speaking world, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith said back in 1776 that money was not wealth. Money was merely a unit of exchange to acquire wealth. Wealth is a car. Wealth is a pair of shoes. Wealth is arable land. Smith said that the ultimate measurement for the real wealth of a country was how many kids you could afford to have per family. You can afford to have 9 kids? Boom, you're wealthy. What's happened increasingly is that people have been conned into giving up their land for monopoly money. They've scaled down from a large home to a cardboard box, but they have more Chuck E. Cheese tokens, so charlatans tell them that they're wealthy. They have to get a dog because they can't afford to have kids, and they're told how crony capitalism makes all ships rise. There's a clear disconnect between the reality and the rhetoric, as economist Nomi Prinz talks about here.
Then COVID hits, bam, they double the size of their book, reaching $9 trillion worth of fabricated money with which to purchase debt and liquefy the markets and take that debt out and put it on their books. And they did that in just a few months. So all of the money creating that they did in the wake of the financial crisis, most of that $4.5 trillion, they basically did that in what I call a split second in time, really, if we look at this historically, and they doubled the size of their book. They weren't the only central bank that did that, of course. Central banks around the world went into overdrive to create money, particularly the big developed countries like the UK, like the ECB bloc, in order to, quote, save the economy from the pandemic, which caused economies to be shut down by their governments. All of this enabled a distortion between the markets and the real economy that was already ongoing to become what I call permanent. There's no going back from here. Now, there are two forms of inflation. There is the inflation that comes from puffing up your books and allowing all this debt to print and not paying more attention to the real economy so that it catches up with the debt. Right now in the world, we have a 3-to-1 ratio of debt to the real economy size. In other words, we have to borrow $3 for every dollar of growth that the world produces. And in the United States, that level is about 1.2, 1.3 right now. In other words, we have to borrow more than we produce in order to just stay flat, right? So that's not good anyway. And the size of debt, obviously, in the United States has gone out of control during this whole period. We've gone from $9 trillion in debt before the financial crisis to $31 trillion right now. We've tripled our debt. We've not tripled the size of our economy.
The reality is there should be no more money in a system than productive capacity. An increase in the money supply is okay so long as the extra dollars in the system are a result of a proportionate rise in productivity. For instance, in the 19th century in America, there was a deflationary crisis when new factory production generated economic activity and we didn't have enough money to do all the transactions. Luckily for us, gold was discovered in California in 1848. Because the dollar was tied to gold at the time, we needed that gold to print up the extra dollars. Likewise with the gold rush in the Klondike around 1890. These expansions of the money supply coincided with an expansion in productivity and real wealth, so they were okay. But that's not what's happening now. We're becoming less productive as a society, yet they're flooding the system with more currency. What interested me was how Nomi Prinz says that the fake economy has been decoupled from reality. What jumped out at me was the depegging of the financial system from reality and how that seems to coincide with other sociological phenomena tied to the financial system. Just as the economic system has gone through a permanent distortion, so is mass media. It's no longer reflecting reality. Instead of casting children who look like parents, the fad is to cast children from a totally different race as a person's progeny. It's suddenly de rigueur to cast black actors as medieval European nobility. The TV shows are decoupled from reality. Likewise, social justice with the claim that men can be women or that men can get pregnant, etc. As the financial system goes into dementia, so does the entire system connected to it. This fact is no more clearly on display than in this clip where a person in a wheelchair is attacking people at a furry convention, accusing them of being transphobic.
And you know what? I suck cock, alright? I suck for cock. Suck dick for tech job? Hey! Woo! Pressing charges! Pressing charges! Pressing charges! Pressing charges! Hey! You attacked a disabled trans people person! Piece of you big man! Come and get him, bitch! Come and get him, bitch! Please. Come and get him!
A perfect metaphor for our economy and the coinciding state of our civilization. Enjoy the collapse, everybody. If you've gotten this far, you must be partial to our content. If you haven't already, head over to thenewamerican.com and subscribe to our print magazine published twice a month in print and daily online. It's the essential news source for freedom-loving Americans.